Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvadha. Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Gururdevo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Bhadram Karnebih Shrunuyama Deva Bhadram Pashye Makshabhir Yajatra Stirairangaihi Tushtuvagam Sastanobihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddashravaः Swasti na Pusha Vishvaveda Swasti nastaksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Bruhaspatir Dhadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste, friends. A hearty welcome to one and all for the today's 19th session of Advaitha Prakarana of Mandukya Upanishad with Karikas. In the last previous mantras from 11 to 15, particularly focuses on the non-dual nature of reality and the ultimate truth of Brahman. These verses collectively reinforce the core Advaita Vedanta philosophy that the ultimate reality, Brahman, is singular and beyond the phenomenon of the world. In today's session, we will be studying the Advaita Prakarana from 16 to 20. To explain these verses, we have with us Srimati Asha Nayak, Srimati Pannaga, Srimati Vidya Prabhu, Mr. Shivakumar, and Srimati Chetana. As usual, today's moderation, presentation, and deeper inputs will be given by Dr. Hegde sir. Let us begin the today's session with a quick recap of Karikas from 11 to 15 of previous session 18 by Dr. Komal. Over to you, sir.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the last session, we saw verses Karikas 11 to 15 of Advaita Prakarana. Here, in this section, Gaudapadacharya wishes to establish four main ideas. That is, how Vedanta negates the existence of the world, how Vedanta negates the origination of the world, the appearance and experience of the world is acceptable to Vedanta, and the cause of appearance and experience is Atma Avidya or Maya. So these are the four main ideas we saw. And in this section, he stresses how Upanishads convey the same meaning. So these are subtle terms which we need to dwell upon and think again and again because they appear similar. Existence and appearance, like Asthi Bhati. As we saw in the next slide, we saw the example of how the moving dots, when we stare at the central black cross, we see an appearance of a greenish ball, greenish dot which keeps moving, whereas it does not exist at all. So there's a difference between what appears and what exists. There can be something which is appearing, but which does not exist. So there can be something existing, but which may not appear to our senses. So that is one lesson which we need to see. So Vedanta negates the existence of the world, but its appearance is taken as true. It's acceptable. So in the next slide, we see the examples from Upanishads. Verse 11 takes the example of 5 sheets from Taittiriya Upanishad. 5 sheets constituted of Annamaya, Pranamaya, etc. are exhaustively explained in Taittiriya Upanishad, but their innermost entity is the Atman, the Supreme Self, who as an individual is the Jiva. This Jiva we saw by the analogy of pot space example. Already it was described by using logic. So we saw we have to negate. So when we are taking example, when we take in this section, we stress about Vedanta, how it negates the existence of the world, negates the origination of the world. We have to always keep in mind this is one part, whereas eventually it is us. We have to negate the existence of the world. We have to negate the origination of the world. So that comes as we saw like different pramanas. We are seeing Shruti Pramana. Before that, we use the logic to negate the existence and origination. And in that part, we had seen that example of pot space to negate the Jiva Srishti. And to negate Jagat Srishti, the example taken was of the dream example, the dream state. So now in this part, it is about taking examples from Upanishads. We saw Taittiriya Upanishad, and in verse 12, we see the example from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So with reference to the macro and micro cosms, which is described in Madhu Brahmana, that is from the 2nd chapter, 5th section of Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where the term Madhu gets repeated again and again. So it's called Madhu Brahmana, where Upanishad divides the world into several pairs belonging to microcosm and macrocosm. Adhyatma and Adidaivam, Veshti Samashti, ice and Surya Devata, wave and ocean, Jivatma and Paramatma, space within our own stomach, within our own body, versus space all over the earth. So these are the world getting divided into microcosm and macrocosm. So that is, but the underlying Ekatma, which is revealed as the essence of both Veshti and Samashti, is to be taken, and that is the same in both Jivatma as well as Paramatma. And Jivatma is not born out of Paramatma, is the essence which is mentioned in this Madhu Brahmana. And that example is taken to explain how, one more example from Upanishads to say how the Srishti is negated in Upanishads. And in the previous slide again we see, can we go to the previous slides? Yeah. So in the 13th Karika, it's clearly mentioned that non-duality is praised in Upanishads and duality is condemned. So the Jiva, Brahma identity or non-difference is praised, prashasyate, in the scriptures, and the perception of plurality is condemned. Thus, that alone is easy to comprehend. This is the samanjasam, tadevam hi samanjasam. So for this, the example we can take, as in the next slide, is from Kathopanishad. So where it's mentioned about eteva iha tat amutra, yatamutra tat anuhya, mrityosam mrityum apnoti yahiya nana eva prashyati. One who sees the difference between here and there, between Veshti and Samashti, between microcosm and macrocosm, he keeps on going from death to death, and he stays in the samsara. So this very clearly, it condemns the thought of duality. In the next slide, we go to the next verse, which says, the individual and the self as separate entities are only spoken of in the portion before creation. So as a stepping stone towards Advaita, the individual and the self, the Jivatma and Paramatma are mentioned as separate entities. But when we reach there, when we cross that initial hurdle, as we mature further, we know the essence, the Ekatma between Jivatma and Paramatma is one and the same. So, like the example given was about preparation of food, annam pachati. So like when we say the food is getting prepared, we won't say we are cooking vegetables and rice, but we directly say what anna is getting prepared. So that example is taken to show that it is just a stepping stone. For want of a term, it is taken that way. The creation is mentioned, but once we get into that Advaita, it has to be discarded. And in the next verse, we go further, where it mentions that Upanishads uses examples, illustrations to deny the Srishti of Jiva as well as Jagat by using examples like clay, pot, gold and ornament, and sparks, etc. And these are the ways in which creation has been illustrated again as a stepping stone. It's only a method used for purpose of explaining that non-dual entity is described, but there is no duality at all. As we see in the next slide, a dualistic world is really not there. It is mere appearance. So in the initial stages, like pole vaulter, we'll have to accept Srishti. And once we reach there, once we get a grasp of that Advaitam, we'll have to discard Srishti. Because anything which originates will have a original existence, like it becomes the truth. Whereas we see that world is mithya, we have accepted world as mithya. And that's why if we give that status of the world getting created, we will be contradicting our own experience as well as logic, as well as what Upanishads say, that world is mithya. That's why invariably we'll have to take that world does not get created. So this is the gist of examples from Upanishads, which we saw in verses 11 to 15 of Advaita Prakarana. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Komal. You have very nicely summarized some of the difficult karikas we studied in the last class to help us to understand, even though I experience duality, even though I experience multiplicity, to be able to see that oneness in the many. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Pariyantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. In the Mandukya and in the Mandukya Karikas, we are studying certain vadas or certain philosophical ideas which are definitely more evolved than what we have normally studied. Normally, in all the previous Upanishads, we studied what is called Srishti Drishti Vada. When we wake up in the morning, what wakes up is our mind. The awakened mind will enliven our sense organs. And because I have a sense organs and mind, I'm able to experience a world outside. There is a Srishti outside there. And that Srishti I'm able to see. And the Srishti that has been created by God, by Brahman through Maya. And this is how we have understood. But when we come to Mandukya, we will see that to be able to understand it more clearer, we have to see the whole world as my own projection. This is called Drishti Srishti Vada, or also Eka Jiva Vada. I alone am. And through my Maya Shakti, I am able to project a whole world. So what I see is all my own projection, just like in dream, I project a dream world. Finally, as we come to Advaitha Prakaranam, we proceed to even a higher Vada called Ajati Vada. In fact, there is no creation. This is what we have to come to understand. But then we see a creation in front of us. Now, whenever there is a creation, our conclusion is if there is a creation, there must be a creator. This is what is called cause hunting. That means from the creation that is there, can I proceed to the creator? We learned earlier in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana. That means if I have a divine gaze, if my vision is so rarefied, then whatever I see around is Bhagavan. The topic of creation is of great interest to Gaudapadacharya. Wherever anything to do with creation, he will have a lot of karikas. Now, among all the texts we have studied, the second verse of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra speaks about creation. The first verse of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra talks about Tvam Padartha, my true nature. The second verse speaks about Tat Padartha, whatever I experience. And the third speaks about the Asi Padartha. If you will remember, which we discussed in the last class, about how the first three verses of the Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra bring the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. And in the first verse, our true nature has come by an analysis of the sleeping Jivatma. And when the sleeping Jivatma wakes up, that waking moment is called Prabodha Samaya. When you wake up from your dream, suddenly the dream world resolves into you, and you realize, I am the creator, sustainer of the dream world. So too, there is a second awakening brought out in the first verse, and that is called when there is a spiritual awakening, you will realize that I alone am, and this whole world is my projection. And this understanding of the true me is called Tvam Padar Lakshartha. In the second verse of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra, we talk about Tat Padartha. Tat refers to the Paramatma, and the essence of Tvam Padartha is the Jivatma. And the third verse will be Tat Tvam Asi. This we have studied before. I will just chant this and let us see how much we remember of this beautiful verse. Bijasyantari vankuro jagadidam prang nirvikalpa punaha maya kalpita desha kala kalana vaichitri chitri kritam maya vi iva vijumbrayate api mahayogi iva yasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshina Murtaye. We'll come back to the cause hunting. Now, I have a creation in front of me. If there is a creation, there must be a creator. There are a few laws of causation. The first law is every effect must have a cause. That means if I see a pot, the pot must have come from its origin, the clay. That means the effect itself, the cause itself modifies to the effect. In the pot clay example, the clay itself has modified to become the pot. Now, the definition of cause is on removing the cause, nothing remains. The effect ceases to be. When I remove the clay, the pot ceases to be. That means, what is that which I can remove from the creation? If I remove that, the whole creation ceases to be. Now, can I remove the 5 elements? If I remove the 5 elements, the creation that ceases to be. The 5 elements themselves have come from Maya. That means I have to go back to Maya. Now, if I remove Maya, will the creation cease to be? Now you remember the word Maya means yama, that which does not exist. Now Maya does not have an existence of its own. Therefore, from Maya, we come back to Brahman. Let us see this verse. Bijasyantari vankuro jagadidam prang nirvikalpaha punaha. The sprout or the tree is existent in the dormant form. In what form? Nirvikalpaha, in an undifferentiated form. That means if you break open the seed, you will not see the sprout in it. Bijasyantari nirvikalpa ankura asti. In the same way, we have to infer that this whole universe existed in a potential unmanifest form. Idam jagat nirvikalpam asi. Where? In Brahman. Because although we say it has come from Maya, it should be Maya has no existence of its own. Ultimately, Brahman through Maya has become this world. That means Shrishte Purvam Jagat Avyakta Rupena Brahmani Asit. That means before creation. The whole creation existed in an unmanifest form in Brahman, just like Bijasyantari Vankuro Iva. Just like the sprout existed in the seed, Idam Jagat, this whole world was existent in Brahman. In what form? In a Nirvikalpa or an unmanifest form or in a potential form. Then comes the work of Maya. Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana. In the same way, this unmanifest world was existing in Brahman. So Brahman is the adhisthana or the support of the world. So Maya has got two properties as part of its Vikshepa Shakti. And one is called Desha and the Kala. And these are two words which you know, Chitri Krita. So the unmanifest world is now made manifest. The undifferentiated world. That means it did not have leaves, branches, tree, all that has come. The word Chitri Krita means to be made manifest, to magnify, to multiply. Maya has got two arms. One arm is called Desha. So the whole world can be divided horizontally in space and vertically in time. Both of these are caused by Maya Shakti. You will see when you are fast asleep, there is no sense of space or time. The moment we wake up, Maya is born. And through Maya Shakti, I become aware of what time is it, where I am. Brahman is the material cause of the universe. Very difficult to believe, of course, through Maya. Vaichitri, Chitri Krita means multiplied. Vaichitri means in variety. Kalana means sambandha or influenced. But through Maya Shakti, through the space-time arm, Brahman now becomes this variegated universe. Now, Brahman is not only the material cause, Brahman is also the intelligent cause. So any cause, for example, if you have to make a pot requires two forms of causations. One is the Upadana Karanam or the material cause, and the other is the intelligent cause, the pot maker, that is called the Nimitta Karanam. Sometimes you will need instruments also. It's called the Sahakari Karanam. So Brahman is both the intelligent cause, the Nimitta Karanam, and the Upadana Karanam. Swechaya, by mere sankalpa. That means Brahman does not have to make any effort to manifest the world, just like the moment we sleep, dream happens. We don't have to make any effort. And Adi Shankara gives two examples. Maya vi iva, like a magician, or like a Mahayogi, like a great ascetic who's able to manifest the whole world. And how is it is done? Punaha, punaha, in a cyclical manner. What is that we have to understand? We have to understand, in the first verse we saw that this whole world is only images. Vishwam Darpana Drishya Mana Nagari. The whole world is like imagery. The whole world is like a dream. I am the supporter of the dream. All the time see yourself as a higher order of reality. If I am the adhistanam of the world, I am asangoham, asangoham. I am not affected by anything that happens, and that is the attitude I need to have. Brahman, as the cause of the world, causation is of two types. I've already mentioned. One is called the intelligent cause or the nimitta karanam. The other is called the upadana karanam or the material cause. The word upadanam means that which is sort of, that which is the raw material. Now we get to another term called abhinna nimitta upadana karanam. Brahman is Jagat Abhinna Nimitta Upadana Karanam, which means the Nimitta Karanam and the Upadana Karanam, the intelligent cause and the material cause are abhinna, not apart from each other. Very rarely. Now, for example, if a carpenter makes a furniture out of wood, the intelligent cause is different, the material cause is different. But in rare cases, for example, the spider creating the web, the spider is both the intelligent and the material cause. And therefore, now there are two things in causation. One is called parinami and the other is called vivarta. Parinami, for example, when the milk turns into curds, it has undergone a modification. When Maya brings about the world, it is a parinama. There is a change. Whereas Brahman does not undergo any change whatsoever. Brahman continues to remain in the same. That is called Vivarta Karanam. We have had various examples. I will conclude by one or two more thoughts. In the explanation of the same word, the second verse of Sri Dakshinamurti Stotra, Swamiji brought a reference to what is called the Gatha Bhashyam. The Gatha Bhashyam is the Bhashyam on the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, where Adi Shankara is describing the emergence of a pot from the clay. And he will ask you this question: when the pot has emerged from the clay, did an existent pot come out of the clay, or did a non-existent pot come from the clay? Now, this is a very deep discussion with very sound logic, and the logic is very profound. I'm not able to go into the details, and the question is, now, did an existent pot come from the clay, or was a non-existent pot come from the clay? Now, he will reason that a non-existent pot cannot have its existence. Can an existent pot come into being? What is the reason for an existent pot? That means from Brahman, did a non-existent, from non-existence has this creation come, or from an existent cause? And in this way, Adi Shankara is able to refute various philosophies and come to one philosophy which is called Satkaryavada, which is exactly what we are studying, Ajativada. There is no creation. Then what is this we are seeing? It is the unmanifest is becoming manifest. Nothing new. Just as in science we say, nothing can be created, nothing can be destroyed. And this is what is called Satkaryavada. Creation is a form of transformation. Nothing new has come out from unmanifest, the manifestation. We will continue the study of karikas from 16 to 22. Now, this is a diversion topic. And in this whole set of 16 to 22, we will study 5 of them in this class, where Gaudapadacharya has taken a diversion to say the importance of having Advaitha Jnanam. Dr. Asha Naik, please.
Om Gurubhyo Nama. Jai Gurudev. This Karika 16 is the answer for previous Karika 15. That is, Bheda Kathaya Nasti. So, Dvaitam Nasti. Bheda Nasti. Now, difference Nasti is the conclusion. That is the conclusion of Veda 2, which explained as Tadartha in the second verse of which I am going to read. This is also final teaching of Veda. If there is no difference, then how do we explain the Karma Kanda and Upasana Kanda? Because every Vedic ritual has duality. like a priest and yajamana, Agni Kunda and oblation. Next slide. So they Brahma on Brahma existence, that is doer and done, knower, known, all duality examples are given. Atma definition is Nityam Shuddham Muktam Buddha. Next slide. I'm going to read a Karika. Ashrama Satrividha Hina Madhyamo Krushta Drishtaya Upasano Upadishta Iyam Tad Artham Anukampaya. Now, next is meaning on the basis of different degree of intellectual capabilities, that is Drishtaya, such as the lower, middle, higher, that is Hina Madhyama Utkrishta. Life itself can be divided into three stages, that is Trivida. The scripture out of compassion, that is Anukampa, and consideration has taught this, that is Upadishta, method of worship or discipline, that is Upasana, for the benefit of those who are not enlightened, that is Tad Artha. Next slide. Pashyam I'm not going to read. Next again. Ashrama, which refers to four stages, Brahmacharya, Grahastha, Vanaprastha and Sannyasa. Basic qualification required in Shraddha is in Veda is required. Karma Yoga is required, Ishvara Arpana Prasada Bhava. Next slide. So now how are we classifying Ashrama and Varni? By three. Basis of qualification is power of grasping and implementing. Broadly classified into three groups. That is, Hina is inferior, Madhyama is intermediary, and Uttama is superior. Next. Now, how do we know where do we stand? What appeals to you, that is where you stand. That is, Manda student likes Karma Yoga, Madhyama likes Upasana Yoga, Utkrishta likes Jnana Yoga. Now this Karma Yoga is called Manda Adhikari, Upasana is called is Madhyama Adhikari, and Atma Yoga is called Uttama Adhikari. Next slide. Upasana is prescribed for Uttama Adhikari, not prescribed because it becomes obstacle itself. But Madhyama Adhikari, Upasana is blessing only. Next slide. Since there is no Srishti, we cannot say Atma is Karanam of Srishti. This is what told 15 verse. Now, Purva Pakshi raised a question. If division is not there, how can Veda is talking about karma and upasana? Both require Veda. How do we account for such statement? Answer is given in this 16. That is, just as Srishti is temporary, Veda also accepted temporarily. Next. Now, everybody is not ready to grasp Advaitam. Being itself, one has to be prepared to grasp Advaitam. Until mind is not ready, Veda itself temporarily compromises its teaching. Veda itself does Anuvada and the Veda and talks without misunderstood Veda. Veda joins Ajnani and joins misconception of Ajnani is Veda. Once student is ready, that is Madhyama Adhikari reaches Uttama Adhikari and ready to grasp Advaitam, Veda negates Dvaitam, which is accepted in the beginning. Next. Now we come to essence of Karika. That is, Veda is temporarily accepted. Veda is temporarily accepted for Manda and Madhyama, that we know. Jnana Yoga also in the beginning stages, it will be under Madhyama Drishti only. Shankaracharya has taken Jnani alone as a Uttama Drishti. Therefore, Manda Madhyama also Karma Upasana and Jnana Yoga until he gets Jnana. Next. So, Karma and Upasana relevant to Manda and Madhyama. That is, we understood. Whoever has gained knowledge that Atma is non-dual, there is no Japa Veda. Uttama Drishti, not Jnana Yogi, but Uttama Drishti is Jnani itself. How do we know this? Because Shankaracharya says, Nishchitam, who has got Nishchaya. What is Nishchaya? Atma Eka Advaitam is Nishchaya. So Atma is non-dual. The one who has grasped this, for him Mananam and Nididhasanam is relevant. Next. Dayaluna is adjective to Veda Anukampa. Anukampa means compassion and sympathy. For whom? Not for Jnani. For Manda and Madhya Adhikari only. So they remain in Sanmarga of Karma and Upasana Marga only, and then prescribes Sannyasa Ashrama, which renounces both Karma and Upasana. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, madam, for a nice explanation of this particular Karika, Karika number 16, which tries to explain why is there Veda. That means if you study our Vedas, you have a lot of Dvaitha aspects, both in the Veda Purva and in the Upanishad. And the answer is 95% of seekers are not ready for Advaita. And he classifies this, he calls it Ashrama Trivida, not the 4 ashramas. It is a classification of 3 categories of seekers as Hina, the lowest, the Madhyama, and the Utkrishta, which help us to move from Ekarupa to Aneka Rupa to Arupa. And that is why we have in the Veda Purva the Veda or the duality is initially accepted. Panaga, please.
Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In this verse, we see the glory of Advaita. Until now, Gaudapadacharya has established that Advaita Darshanam alone is the teaching of Vedanta. We have seen it in all the Mahavakyas. Dvaita Darshanam as reality is wrong understanding because it is not supported by the Shastram. In this verse, Gaudapadacharya is making a unique case for Advaita Darshanam because it doesn't generate raga and dvesha. Any teaching that generates raga and dvesha is not the right teaching. This is a very practical verse explaining the conflicts we see today. Coming to the verse, Swasiddhantavyavasthasu Dvaitinau Nishchita Dridham Parasparam Virudhyante Tayarayam Na Virudhyate. The translation is, the dualists are firmly settled on their own set of conclusions. They contradict one another. This teaching, that is Advaita, is not in conflict with them. Next slide, sir. Gaudapadacharya wishes to state that the Vedas apply the Adhyaropa Apavada format to teach students about the reality of the world, including creation. In the beginning, the Veda Purva part talks about God creating the world, and there are different theories of creation. However, the Advaitin wishes to focus on the Veda Anta part, which gives us the truth that the world is not real, but an appearance caused by Maya. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. However, given our inherent ignorance, and as explained by Asha ma'am, this profound teaching cannot be given to our unprepared minds. Hence, the Veda Purva part is absolutely necessary to prepare our minds. Once our minds are sufficiently expanded, refined, and mature, the Vedanta introduces Advaita. Next slide, sir. Let us just see an overview of Dvaita here. The Vedas themselves begin with Jiva Jagat Ishvara. There is a clear distinction between the individual, the world, and God. However, and most people look upon, and all the Dvaitins look upon Dvaitam as Satyam. Since there can be many gods in Dvaita, there are as many religions, castes, sects, and communities. Each one firmly and vehemently, Dridam and Nishchitam, holds on to their own system, Swasiddhanta, while negating or placing the other belief systems at a lower level. This we see very commonly in our lives, even today. Shaivism, Vaishnavism, Christianity, or Islam, all of them assert that their God is the only real God. Dvaitins also strongly dislike other systems and especially Advaita, indicating very strong raga and dvesha. Raga for their system and dvesha for the others. Therefore, strong raga and dvesha can never lead to samyak darshanam, and therefore Dvaita darshanam is the wrong darshanam. Swami Paramathananda compares these dualistic faiths to different blind people touching different parts of an elephant. Therefore, they arrive at different conclusions. They may be right from their perspective, but will oppose all the other theories as false. Hence, they constantly quarrel with each other. Parasparam virudhyante. This verse explains why wars were fought throughout history to establish the dominance of one god over another. But the non-dualist knows that the truth behind Dvaitam is Advaitam. The different systems and deities are not ends in themselves, but the means to Advaita. Next slide, sir. Here, we see that Advaitin will never be in conflict with other darshanams or other systems. He knows that Dvaita and Advaita belong to two different orders of reality. Advaitam is Paramarthika Satyam. The Advaitin will accommodate Dvaita Darshanam as a stepping stone to arrive at this stage. He validates the other darshanams as Vyavaharika Satyam, experiential realities. And Vyavaharika Satyam is very useful for acquiring sadhana chatushray sampatti, as we saw in the previous verse. Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga are clearly Dvaita practices, but without them, our minds cannot be purified. The Advaitin also recognizes that the world is Dvaita. To use the pot and clay example, the pots can be of different shapes, sizes, colors, and functions, and of course with different names. The Dvaitin divides them based on these attributes, while the Advaitin acknowledges their differences but sees the inherent clay in and through them all. There is no hate at all. Next slide, sir. There is a beautiful verse by Lord Hanuman, who is worshipped by the Dvaitins as the Dasa of Lord Rama. Yet he himself says, Deha bhavena dasosmi, jiva bhavena tvadamshakaha, atma bhave tvamevaham, iti me nischita matihi. This is my firm belief. Deha buddhya, that is from the standpoint of the body, I am your dasa. This is Dvaita darshanam, because as the body, I am a limited, weak, and I have no powers compared to all the magnificent powers of the gods. So from the body point of view, I am your dasa. Then, jiva bhavena tvadamshakaha. That is from the standpoint of the Jivatma, that is a reflected consciousness, Chidabhasa. It is an amsha of the total consciousness. This is Vishishta Dvaita. This is necessary to develop Vishwarupa Bhakti, and hence Vishwarupa Upasana, where we see everyone as a part of the same God. Then finally, Atma Bhave Tvameva Aham. From the Atma angle, I am you only. And this is Advaita. The first two are thus preparatory stages, and the third is the culmination, the Paramarthika Satyam, and there is no conflict or contradiction for the Advaitin between Dvaita and Advaita. Thank you. Hari Om.
Thank you very much, Panaga. Very, very nice explanation of the perspective of a Dvaitin and an Advaitin. Every Advaitin has been a Dvaitin at one period of time and will understand, therefore, he is able to accommodate. Spiritual evolution, one has to go from Dvaita to Vishishta Dvaita to Advaita, and therefore there is no strong dislikes and dislikes, and there is no quarrel or the fanatism that comes with religion is absent in Dvaita. Vidya, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The 18th verse. Advaitam Paramartho hi Dvaitam Tadbheda Uchyate Tesham Ubhayata Dvaitam Tenayam na Virudhe. The non duality is indeed the absolute reality. Duality is said to be its manifestation only. For dualist, duality exists both empirically and absolutely. Hence, this teaching, that is the Advaita teaching, is never in conflict with them. Coming to the verse, Advaitam hi Paramartha. Advaitam, that is the non dual Turiyam, is the absolute reality. An Advaitin does not have any problem at all with any other systems of religion because he knows that in the relative plane, every system has got its own relative validity, like different systems of medicine, which has a later note. Swami Paramarthananda says there is no cause of for an Advaitin as they have. And so, when there is no body identification, where is the question of the disease? In Advaitam, there is no question of samsara. Dvaitam tadbheda uchyate. As the waker's mind manifests as the dream house, dream body, etc., it is relative manifestation. It is all one mind manifesting as many. Similarly, one Brahman alone, vyavaharically appearing as Pramata, Pramanam, Prameyam, Triputi. So Dvaitam Tadbheda Uchyate. Therefore, Advaitin will give Dvaitam its relative validity, but never never give, he will take it as the absolute one. It is like watching a movie knowing full well that it is unreal. But for Advaitin, this is not possible. Tesham Ubhayataha Dvaitam. Tesham here means the Dvaitinam, Dvaitas. For the followers of Dvaita philosophy, Dvaitam alone is the absolute reality. For these Dvaitins, problems are also absolutely real. Whereas for the Advaitin, he can come out of the problem and see the fact, and the identification with the body then is a choice for him. Dvaitinam Ubhayataha Ubhayataha Dvaitam. Relative reality is also Dvaitam. Absolute reality is also Dvaitam. For them, samsara as well as moksha is Dvaitam. Samsara kale api, moksha kale api. Both in samsara and mukti, they are in duality. Swami Paramarthananda says that their theory of moksha is peculiar. They believe that they are jivas and so different from God. While in moksha, instead of the jivas on earth, they will serve the Lord. Even in Swargaloka, there will be gradation. Whereas for Advaitins, there is no question of nearer God or farther God, as one is never away from Lord. Tena ayam na virudhyate. We are never going to quarrel with them. Whatever be one's choice, ultimately, one has to come to Advaitam. All religious practices are useful for Chitta Shuddhi. Sarvapeksha Sutra in Brahma Sutra says all practices, pujas, religions, upasanas, even puja involving liquor, blood, etc., are not to be condemned. It's a gradual growth. Even Lord Krishna in the 17th chapter said that tamasic pujas as well as tamasic people should never be criticized. Thus, we understand from this verse that the absolute reality is only one non dual principle, the Turiyam. All duality is all appearances of one Brahman through a Maya, just as through Nidra Shakti the dream world appears. Brahman alone was, is, and will be. Advaitam appears as Dvaitam. As long as I'm ignorant,
I will take Dvaitham to be real. From the dualist standpoint, it is always Dvaitham, whether during samsara, ignorance, or moksha, knowledge. For them, Dvaitham is the ultimate reality. The non dualist does not want to contradict them. All the dualists are rigidly holding on to their standpoint and even discourage their followers from going to Advaitha Acharyas. The non dualists are not afraid of Dvaitam because a non dualist can understand both levels of truth. Advaita does not contradict any other teaching. This is the essence of this work. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you very much, Vidya, for explaining this particular karika. Swami Anubhavananda ji has one important rule for us to follow in life, and that is whatever we give a lot of importance to, that's something which we give a lot of importance to, is the cause of all our problems in life. In Advaita, one of the central teaching is whatever I see and experience is mithya and not so real. Now, if this is ingrained in our understanding, different philosophical schools have different approaches. Let it be. This is a process of evolution. And that is why within Advaitic vision, when you give less importance to whatever you see and experience, because everything is mithya, you don't get too upset or you have no differences with different Dvaita schools. The next karika will be explained by Shiv Kumar. Shiv, please.
Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have heard from earlier sessions to establish Brahman is not Karanam. Gaudapada uses a four-step strategy. And as Dr. Hegde sir mentioned, Swami Paramathananda says that Gaudapadacharya takes a diversion to the topic, strongly criticizing all Dvaitins who believe that there is a real creation born out of Brahman. Pannaga and Vidya, my earlier speakers, beautifully explained. After glorifying Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam through Mahavakyams in all the Vedas, the Upanishad strongly criticizes those who see Jivatma Paramatma difference experiencing they will experience strong Ragadvesha, continue to be in Dvaita and be samsaris. Moving from karma to karma yoga to gnana yoga, we should aim to move from being in Dvaita and samsara to being an Advaitin. Now, moving on from the previous verse, there are three questions. Is Brahman the cause of the universe? If Brahman does become the universe, will the immortal undergo mortality? 3. Does Brahman become the universe? We will find answers to these questions in the 19th Karika. Next slide, sir. The Mayaya Vidyate Hetat Manyathajam Kathanchana Tatvato Vidyamanehi Martyatam Amrutam Brachet. Next slide, sir. To answer the three questions, we should first understand the word cause. Material cause can be of two types. One is Parinami Upadhana Karanam, where the raw material undergoes a change and transforms into the product, and in which the product is as real as the raw material, like wood and a wooden table. Here, in this example, the carpenter is the nimitta karanam, or the intelligent cause, who also has to undergo a change in the sense he has to perform action. And upadana karanam, the wood, also has to undergo a change to become the wooden table. Similarly, if Brahman must become a cause, it must undergo a change. Gaudapadacharya strongly challenges Brahman being Parinami Upadana Karana. Because anything undergoing a change will have to undergo Shadvikara. Asti Jayate, Vardate, Viparinimate, Apakshiyate, and Vinashyati. That is potential existence, birth, growth, metamorphosis, decay, and death. Hence, wherever there is change, birth and death cannot be avoided. As Vedantha Pramanam says, Brahman is Nirgunam, Nirvikaram, an infinite principle and not bound by time and space. Hence, Brahman is free from the 6 modifications, including birth and death. Presume if Brahman were to transform into something else, creation maybe, then there would be no Brahman as he has transformed. Hence, Brahman cannot transform into creation or cannot be Parinami Upadana Karana. Then, what kind of Karanam is Brahman? Brahman is the non-transforming material cause of the universe without really undergoing a change, but seemingly undergoing an apparent change to seemingly produce a karyam or an unreal world, just as the mind appears as the dream. This is called Vivarta Karanam, where a changeless cause produces an effect, that which is of a lower order of reality. Hence, a changeless Brahman produces a world of a lower order of reality or mithya. Next slide, sir. Therefore, Gaudapadacharya says, Etat, this changeless Brahman, Vidyate, multiplies itself into pluralistic creation. Mayaya, only apparently, seemingly, or unreally. Anyatha, in any other manner. Ajam, changeless Brahman. Nirvikaram Brahma na vidyate, can never modify to become the creation, just as a seed modifying to become a tree, or just as the milk modifying to become the curd. Kathanchana, in any other manner. Next slide, sir. To conclude with the central message given here, Gaudapadacharya says that Brahman is only non-transforming material cause of the universe. Brahman does not become the universe, but only appears as the universe, like the waker without undergoing transformation appears as the threefold Pramata, Prama, and Prameyam, that is, dream observer, observed dream, and the instrument for observing the dream. Concluding, I should develop a conviction that this non-dual Brahman is I, the Atma. From me, the world appears, into me, the world disappears. But I am never disturbed by this appearance and disappearance. Hari Om, Shri Gurubhyo Namaha, Shri Krishna.
Thank you very much, Shiv Kumar, for giving a nice explanation, because we know Brahman is essentially a karta. Brahman does not do anything. But then how does Brahman become the world? Of course, through Maya. Maya provides the upadhi, just like the pot space and the total space. Brahman is Vivarta Upadana Karanam. Brahman does not undergo any change. That is why if you really identify with the pot space that we as a true nature, the presence of the pot or the absence of the pot, that means the pot does not have to break. The walls of the pot only seemingly limit me, but I have been with Brahman, I am Brahman, and I will be Brahman. Brahman has never undergone any modification to become who I am, the so-called Jivatma. The last Karika today will be explained by Chetana. Chetana, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This Karika 20 is a continuation of the previous Karika. So to establish the Advaitham nature of Brahman, Gaudapadacharya argues that Brahman is not a cause or Karanam at all, because any Karanam must be potentially Dvaitam to produce the effect or Karyam. Therefore, Advaitam has to be free from the Karanam status. And to establish that Brahman is not Karanam, Gaudapada uses a 4-step strategy as mentioned before. Negation of the Jiva Shrishti and Jagat Shrishti, both logically and scripturally. And in this portion, Karikas 15 to 30, he is negating the Jagat Shrishti scripturally. Negation of Jagat means that no creation has come out of Brahman. He strongly criticizes the Dvaitins, who believe that a real creation is born out of Brahman. As far as an Advaitin is concerned, he makes 2 statements. Either no creation is born out of Brahman, or an seeming creation only is born out of Brahman. Gaudapada says the Dvaitha theory of real creation originating out of Brahman will lead to several problems. First problem is emotional, because in their philosophy of duality, it is very real, which means raga, dvesha cannot be avoided, leading to samsara. An Advaitin is able to transcend duality and avoid any kinds of reaction, whereas a Dvaitin becomes a fanatic. He then talks about logical problems that the Dvaitins will face. All philosophers say Paramatma is eternal and infinite, meaning it is beyond time and space. This means it is not subject to modification. Why? Because modification is caused by time only. So that which is beyond time cannot undergo change, means it is nirvikaram. In Purusha Suktam, this is beautifully said, Ajayamano Bahuda Vijayate. Without really producing a world, Bhagavan seemingly produces an as-though creation, which is called Maya Shakti. He creates the world without creating, like a magician materializing objects seemingly. Such a magical Srishti is called Mayaya Vidyate. Therefore, after explaining the Shruti Pramanas, how Advaita alone is the reality, now from Karika 18, Gaudapadacharya is talking about the wrong notions of the Dvaita principles. These are called as the Ninda Karikas. And so the same point explained in Karika 19 is continued in the next 2-3 Karikas. So Karika 20 says, Ajatasya aiva bhavasya jatyam icchanti vadinaha ajato hi amrito bhavaha martyatam katham eshyati. He says, Vadinaha icchanti, the Dvaitins claim. They claim what? Jatim, the birth of Ajatasya Bhavasya Eva, the birth of the birthless Brahman. Bhavasya here means Brahman. This is their claim. So Gaudapadacharya questions them. Katham, how can Ajata Amrutaha Bhava, the birthless immortal reality or Brahman, he ishyati, indeed undergo martyatam, mortality? He wonders how they do not recognize this logical fallacy. To say that Brahman produced this creation is the biggest logical fallacy possible. Why? To say so is to accept that the infinite becomes finite, the changeless becomes changing. It is like saying that the all-pervading God is in heaven. This is a logical fallacy. How can the unchanging Brahman become the changing creation? It cannot become this changing world because he says, Ajataha hi amritaha bhavaha, because Brahman is the birthless, deathless immortal reality. It can never become the creation.
the infinite can never become finite. So these Vadinas speak of birth of that unborn reality. It is like asking, who is Lord Shiva's father? If we speak of birth and still call them Supreme Lord who is without birth, then aren't we contradicting ourselves? Because if we speak of birth, then it will die too. Then it is no more immortal and unborn. On the other hand, Advaithins don't speak of birth as the Dvaitins do. They say it is apparent or appearing as though. Rope was always there, but it is appearing as though a snake. Similarly, Advaita is always there, but appearing as though Dvaitha. It has not become Dvaitha. In his Bhashyam, Shankaracharya reiterates Gaudapadacharya's views. He says, they speak of birth and death, birth and creation of that unborn self who is by nature immortal. According to them, non-dual Brahman has become creation, a world of multiplicity. What is the nature of the supreme reality? It is unborn, immortal. And so how can this Atma with this nature have birth or death? There is absolutely no death for reality. Why? One cannot change one's innate nature. Non-duality cannot become duality. It appears as though dual. If it becomes dual, then it is no longer non-dual. So according to Swamiji, these Dvaitha Ninda Karikas from Karika 17 to 22 are important and worth meditating upon. If one understands these Karikas alone, the idea of moksha and the importance of self-knowledge will become very clear. Hari Om, thank you.
Thank you very much, Chetana, for a very nice explanation. In a way, you have summarized all these karikas, which are helping to understand what is this ajati vada. Gaudapada is very clear that there is no creation, but I experience a creation. And therefore, he will compromise for our sake and say, although there is no creation, there is only an appearance of creation, because the infinite, the Parabrahma, Paramatma, really does not undergo any modification. Just like how we are able to project and create a dream world, so too this world is really not different from a dream world. The dreamer does not undergo any change in producing, in sustaining, and in absorbing the real world. It is a phenomenon. It is something that we experience. It is something that makes us suffer. It makes us enjoy. But the moment we wake up, Prabodha Samaye, you understand Advayam. I am the non-dual creator, the sustainer, and the substratum of the so-called dream world or the so-called real world, which in Drishti Srishti Vada is one and the same. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you, Dr. Hegde sir, and all speakers of the day for such a wonderful session. Thank you all, friends, for your active participation in this divine journey. On coming Monday, 30th September, let us tune in for the gift session 46. Now, it's time to conclude the session with Shanti Mantra. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you.